Welcome to the Bite-Sized Storytelling Show, brought to you by Commaful.com, where we bring you techniques, advice, and stories that will help you on your writing journey. Without further ado, please give a warm welcome to our special guest.
Hello, I am Ryan Decaria, and I'm here to talk about tropes, but more specifically, I'm here to talk about trope families. And what I'm talking about is, let's, for example, use the caper crew. So you have the mastermind, you have the thief, the hacker, the grifter, the hitter, the fall guy, you have the mark, you have all these tropes that go into like what a caper crew would be, or their marks, right? So you have all these tropes. Another example is like the jet fighter squad. Think like Top Gun, right? You have the ace pilot, you have the hot shot, you have the rookie, you have the mechanic, you have the officer, and you have all these other, tropes that kind of go into that. And think Top Gun, all the different kinds of pilots that you could have that kind of have their own trope that they kind of fit into. Another one that gets used a lot without people realizing it is the high school tropes. And there's a ton of them, right? You have the jock, the cheerleader, the brain, the outcast, the rebel, the pothead, the skater, the goth, all these different tropes that you think of that you might think are cliches, right? You think of the goth girl. Well, what I want to stress with tropes is when you use the tropes, the first thing that you think of that comes to your mind is probably the cliche. So you gotta reject that and find something different. And with these caper crews, what I'm going to suggest you do is create your background characters, like all your supporting cast of characters for your novel or your screenplay. And how you do this is you take two of these trope families and you line them up. So let's say we'll line the caper crew up, right? We have the mastermind, the hacker, the thief, the grifter, and the mark, right? And then we have all the high school tropes. So we're going to go jock, cheerleader, goth, nerd. It's going to be part of this high school. They're going to run into a cheerleader. So I'm going to take that cheerleader and I'm going to draw a line from it to somewhere on the other side of my paper that has all of the caper crew. So how do I want my cheerleader to behave? And you kind of, like, these aren't major characters in your story, right? So you're not necessarily going to put a lot of effort into developing these characters. So let's just do something unusual, right? We'll make her the grifter, right? That's kind of interesting. Like the cheerleader's the one that's going to sell you some, illicit something or other, right? Maybe it's not the same as the pothead would do, right? But they're the one that's out to make you the mark, right? So I'm going to draw a line between that and that just kind of give the person a name, right? So now I have the cheerleader who's the grifter and a name. And then I'm going to go on. Okay, I have the jock, right? And the jock is going to be my thief. I don't know, let's just draw that line, right? It's something unusual. You want it to be kind of unique. So my jock is also the one who's my thief in this story. And then you go on, the nerd, I'm going to make the mastermind. That's maybe let's reject that, right? I want the thief to be the nerd to be my hitter, right? That's something unique, right? He's the one that's gonna, and maybe he's not gonna use his fist. Maybe he knows some kind of karate or not. I don't know. But he's the one that's gonna be the hitter, kind of, if they were to ever form this caper crew and go out, doing crime. He's the one that's gonna punch the bad guy in some way. And maybe he's just going to use his brain to do it, right? So I'm developing this like interesting character because the brain is my hitter, right? And so you go and you decide on how many characters that you're going to have. The principal, right? Maybe he's going to be the mark, right? He's the one that's kind of going to be gullible and is going to be vulnerable to this. And so we kind of have that character. And how this works, right? So you have this list. You have these characters that now you have this connection of kind of what they're going to be like. And as your main characters interact, they come into a room and say you have the jock and the cheerleader, they're in the room together, right? So now my character is going to interact with them. Well, now these people have a life of their own, right? They're up to something. And my main character is gonna encounter them, and maybe that's what they're up to never even comes up in the plot. But they're acting shifty, and now my character is gonna go in, and there's a world going on, right? They're doing something with the principal, and maybe it comes out later, maybe it doesn't. Maybe it becomes a plot point, maybe it doesn't. But my characters are gonna interact with my hero or my main character in a certain way. Maybe they're not sure if they can trust her, and they avoid her. And then she encounters, right, the nerd, and maybe he's not afraid of something that she thought she should be, right? So you get these little tiny details that will start coming out in just the way that your characters interact. And now you don't have to spend a lot of time writing this big, research, like a journal for every character of like detailing, where they went to school and what their most embarrassing moments are, right? You don't need any of that for your supporting characters because you have these two connections, and as you start thinking of it, then those background characters, your supporting cast, will come to life because, one, they each have their own problems. So I did this for Devil in the Microscope, my book, and I picked all these high school tropes. My character was going to this high school, and my characters all their parents are mad scientists that work for my main character's dad in his laboratory. And so this town is kind of like a mining town, except for it's this mad science town. And everyone in the high school is being experimented on. So what I did is I took all of the mad science tropes, right? You have flowers for Algernon, you have Invisible Man, you have the Frankenstein's monster, that someone brought back using other parts, brought back to life, right? You have the fly, right? Someone's turning into an insect. You have all these cool, awesome tropes that are in mad science. And I started applying it. So I take a character, she's going to encounter this character. What mad science trope do I want to apply to it, right? And so like the cheerleader and let's say the flowers for Algernon, where this cheerleader is not as smart as she wants to be, right? She wants to be, one of the plot points is the scientific Olympiad team. So the cheerleader wants to be on this team, but because everyone is so smart at this school, because they're all children of these mad scientists, they're all, even if they're scientists, take the mad part out, they're children of scientists, and they all kind of are smart. They all kind of want to be successful scientists, and not everyone, because some of them are going to be the jock, right? Some of them are rejecting their parents, but this cheerleader, I decided, was going to want to be on the scientific Olympiad team, but she's not quite smart enough, right? And maybe in another school, she might be totally smart enough. But in this school, she's not smart enough. And so her parents, unbeknownst to her, are doing something. They're experimenting on her to make her smarter so that she can join the team, because they're going to be a little bit more proud of her because they're a little disappointed that she's not on the team. And yeah, that sucks. That's what I do to my characters. I throw rocks at them. But what happens is this cheerleader doesn't come up that often. She encounters them in the hall a little bit, and every once in a while she becomes important to the plot, and then she doesn't, right? So she's in and out, but she's a side character, but she's got really big problems of her own that come up. And even in the first book, they don't come up in the first book, but they're kind of there, right? You see the seeds. Just because I made that decision, I drew that line, I made the decision, this is something that she's dealing with, that when she encounters my main character, she's got this problem, and she's not going to necessarily confess that, but it's going to affect how she encounters other people, the way she acts. And I love how this came about in my books. The mad science is, I think, awesome, and I recommend this trope family, trope smash. Smash these tropes together and see what you can come up with for your supporting cast. I'm Ryan Decaria, author of 2 books, Devil in the Microscope, which is the one that I've been talking about, and the sequel, which just came out, We Shall Be Monsters, which follows the adventures of Annika in a world full of mad science, dealing with friendships in high school, and that her father is planning on using her in his experiments. Check it out now on Amazon. You can find me at madsciencefiction.com and on Twitter and Facebook. Thanks for listening. Bye.
If you found this interesting, be sure to like, subscribe, and give a special thanks to our volunteer instructor. Reviews and likes really go a long way and help us provide more awesome writing resources to the Commaful community. If you aren't on Commaful yet, You can join a community of poets, short story authors, and fan fiction writers on Commaful.com.